Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Well, welcome to another episode of Watching James Revisited. In this series, I go into my back catalogue of videos and I bring out something that is relevant again for a particular reason. Today, it is the full in-depth review of the SeaGull 1963, the 40mm variation of it. Now, this watch is obviously iconic amongst us affordable watch collectors. It is an amazing watch, and it's a watch that I had wanted for some time. And I went for the 40mm case diameter because that is the size that sort of suits me best. I really quite like the 40mm case diameter. But I ended up selling that watch, and I ended up selling that watch for a very specific reason. It had nothing to do with how I liked the watch. It had nothing to do with the quality of the watch. It had a lot to do with the lug to lug of that particular watch. The case was fantastic, the size of the watch was fantastic, except for those lugs were a little bit too long for me, and it meant that it sat on my wrist just a little bit strangely. And I knew when I sold that watch that I wanted to own and enjoy and experience the 38mm version. And that is exactly what I have done. In a couple of days, I am going to be showing you that 38mm case variation of this watch and give it like a semi-review, a semi sort of side-by-side with the watch that I'm going to be featuring today, the 40mm. Now, guys, I purchased both of these watches from the same store on AliExpress. I paid my own money for them, but I am going to leave one of those affiliate links down below. If you decide that you want the 40mm version or the 38mm version, you can click on that link. I will end up earning a tiny little bit of commission, and I certainly do appreciate you using those links. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I really would appreciate it if you just click on that subscribe button. Now, how much did I pay for this watch? Well, they were both the same amount of money from the store that I bought it from, and it was 260 Australian dollars. And I think for 260 Australian dollars, either of these watches are really good value. But at 260 Australian dollars, it's still enough money that I think you should make sure that you buy the correct size. So let's jump into the revisited 40mm full in-depth review, but make sure in a few days you come back to the channel and check out my sort of comparison with the 38mm. See which one that would actually suit your wrist better and perhaps make a bit more of an informed decision. Right, let's flip the camera around. Let's check out the full in-depth review of this one on Watching James Revisited. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. Well, I finally bought myself one of these SeaGull 1963 model watches. Now, I know I'm a little bit late to the game here. I know that a lot of people have bought this watch already, and it's always been on my list, and I've always wanted to own this watch. I just hadn't got around to it. But now I have bought this watch. And it's a watch I wanted to own for two real reasons. Firstly, it gets some amazing reviews. People are really impressed by it. A lot of these watch reviewers on YouTube even say at the end of their reviews that this is going to be a keeper for them. And that's a big thing to say. If you want to do this sort of job and review watches, you can't really keep all your watches. It ends up being too big a collection. However, if you end up keeping a watch like a couple that I have, I think that's a very big thumbs up for that watch. The second reason is that case back, or that display case back, showing off that SeaGull movement. It's such a pretty looking case back, or a pretty looking movement through that see-through case back. I really wanted to experience that and see that for myself. But that's enough of this introduction. Let's jump straight in and we'll review this watch. So as I mentioned in my first impressions video of this watch, there was this instant feeling of quality when I first handled it. There was just, I think there's something to do with the combination of the weight, the size, and just the materials that are used. It also comes in this nice packaging, nice and safe in this type of packaging. Has a spare brown leather strap, a couple of cards, warranty, information, etc. And the watch came on this NATO style strap. Let's run through the dimensions of this watch quickly so they can show you a bit more of the rest of this watch. The case diameter is 40mm, the case thickness is 13.7mm, obviously not including that double pass NATO strap. We have a lug to lug of 50.3mm, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later. They are quite long lugs on this particular watch. The lug width is 20mm, and on this particular strap it weighs in at 70 grams. This golden champagne style dial has a very slight texture to it. You almost can't see it. Sort of reminds me a little bit of the sort of texture that you can see on paper. These golden numbers and the triangular battens are all applied, as well as the use of that golden surround to the star. Everything else is printed on, also includes that 5-minute increments around the edge, and it goes sort of 5 up to 60. There's some small minute marks and even smaller second marks as well. And it's the same on those two subdials, as you can see. The minute, hour and the subdial second hands and the subdial minute counter are in blue, and they really play with the light nicely, as you can see as you sort of tilt it with the light. There's that nice little shimmer from those blue hands. Then there's that nice pop of colour with that red chronograph hand. It's nice and long, it goes all the way out to that second track, and what it does is it sort of offsets that red in that star as well. And what you'll notice if you have a look closely at that minute hand and that chronograph hand, they actually bend in a little bit down towards the dial at their tips, which gives a little bit more added depth to the dial of the watch. And to finish off the dial, you'll see those lines of text are also printed on in black. Now this model does not have any lume, so there's no point putting in a lume video at all, so you won't see one of those today. This one particular as well also came with the domed sapphire crystal. There is a really nice transition from that domed sapphire crystal onto that polished fixed bezel and then down onto the case, which really helps to tie this watch together. But as you can see already, even after I've wiped it down, this polished stainless steel case does attract a few fingerprints. On the side we've got these two stainless steel pushers and this crown. The crown is just a push-pull and only has the one position. Being a manually wound watch, at the first position you can manually wind, and at the first position you can adjust the time. As you can see, it's not a hacking movement. And I do really like how they've signed this crown. That nice star fits in so well to that crown shape. A star within a circle always looks quite good, and it does then tie in to the star on the dial. And I'll quickly just show you the features of the chronograph itself. You've got a second hand that ticks around all the time, and we've got a 30-minute counter. So to activate the chrono hand, click the top right hand pusher, obviously starts the chronograph, press it again to stop the chronograph, again to restart, and the bottom right, it resets. Now the watch came on this green NATO strap, which actually feels quite nice. I think it's quite well made, but unfortunately it is way too small for me. As you can see, when it's done up properly, the buckle and tang's all the way over here on my wrist, when it should be in the middle. But it does suit the watch, it looks quite good, and it fits nicely on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. And as you can see, the flap here, which should be folded over, it's not long enough because it's too small for me. This watch does particularly look good on some various straps, so I'll show you on the brown leather strap that it came with as well. And funny enough, when the NATO strap was too small for me, this one's virtually too big for me. I'm on the outermost hole there. But it does certainly look quite nice on that strap. But the problem is for me, because it's a little bit too big for me, this comes up a little bit too far, so it interrupts that view of the watch. But as you can see, the brown actually really matches in well with that champagne dial. But the best part about having it on a strap like this is that you have clear viewing through that see-through case back to see that movement. At this price, I don't think there's really any other movements that you can find that look quite this good. And it is one of the big reasons why I bought the watch. What's also nice is that you can see all the bits and pieces moving when you start activating the chronograph. You can see the lever disengaging, the other levers moving around, and then reset. Let's see what this movement is like on the time grapher. Well, as you can see, this one has a 21,600 vibrations per hour. It has a fairly limited or low beat error, quite a high healthy amplitude of 336, and it's running about 10 to 12 seconds fast, which for this movement, I think that's actually running pretty well. So what do I like about this watch? What do I possibly don't like about it? And what are some things that I might want to change if I had that option or to do so? Well, very simply, I just love the feeling of quality that you get with this watch. It really feels like it should cost more than it is. Also, that case back is absolutely amazing. Really, I could just stare at that all day long. And I do like that they've put that signed crown. I think that star really suits the watch, and it really gives that fairly simple polished case back and that case just a little bit of something. The case itself, as I said, is all polished and has those slightly downturned lugs, so that's quite nice, so it fits onto my wrist.
but it's nice just to have a little bit of bling there. So what don't I like about this watch? Well, for me, there's actually not that much to complain about. I guess there's a couple of personal opinions. I'm not a huge fan of the champagne and that yellow gold colour, but that's just me. It doesn't take away from the watch at all, and I still actually think it looks quite good, but I'm a bit more of a silver guy. But there's definitely one thing that I would like to change about it, and it is these lugs. They are really quite long, and they really make this quite nice size watch extend quite far out. It sits okay on my wrist, my 6 3/4 inch wrist, but if you had a wrist much smaller than this, they would start to overhang. Obviously there is a smaller version of this watch. There is a 38mm, which would resolve that, but I still think they stick a little bit too far out. It'd be nice if they took 1 or 2 mils off each one, tucked it in a little bit, and I think it would be a nicer looking package. But it doesn't affect how it wears on my wrist. I think it looks quite good. But let's flip it back around now, and I'll give you some of my final thoughts.
So really this watch, more than any other watch that I've ever bought, especially when I bought it online without seeing it first, it really lives up to the expectations of what I was expecting. Now it's really hard sometimes when you're watching these watch reviews, you see people get very excited and they're saying this is amazing, that's amazing, but then you order it for yourself, you've got these super high expectations, and the watch, even if it is quite a good watch, sometimes it's not quite meeting your expectations and you can get a little bit disappointed about it. This watch, however, absolutely not. It absolutely met my expectations. And that is a little bit surprising because I'd seen so many videos about it and my expectations were rather high. So that is a pretty good thing to say about a watch, to say that it actually met my expectations, even though my expectations were up here. So I would really recommend this watch for people. I think if you're interested in it at all, you like the look of it, you like that case back just like I do, then I think you will not be disappointed if you buy this one. And before I forget and before I end this video, I just want to say another positive about this watch is that it looks good on all sorts of varieties of different straps and bands. And that's quite good. It's nice to be able to dress up a watch like this or have it like as a daily kind of wearing watch or just downplay it completely. And that's a pretty good positive for a watch. And this one, it is one of the better ones that I've seen do that. But thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you tuning in and I hope to see you in the next video.